What is up, everybody? This is JT from PWB, and today we're going to be starting a new series where we go back and watch some older either events or storylines or an era of wrestling. And this is something that I've been wanting to do just because my background as a fan, I really didn't get to watch a lot of this content or in wrestling that is considered the best or high quality. So like my background as a fan, I was born in 98, so I didn't really start watching wrestling until I was like 10 or 11. So like around like 08, 09. And I mean, I didn't even really, it's not like I was a super big fan. I was kind of just tuning in and out. Like the first match I remember was some ECW shit match with with like Goldust or something. So that's kind of why I wanted to start and like just be committed to going back and watching a section of time just to kind of get a feel for the product overall and see really if it does hold up and if it is better than what is currently out there nowadays. And so the first kind of like mini series or section that I'm going to do is it's starting SummerSlam 2002, and it's going to kind of be like the Ruthless Aggression era. And I know people kind of debate what either event or show kind of starts the Ruthless Aggression era, but I kind of just went with this pay-per-view, one because it's really highly regarded as like a fantastic event that they had, and two is because it mainly kicks off the official kind of brand split, because after this they unveil some different titles and they do some things with the Undisputed and the Intercontinental, and they eventually make the United States. So that's kind of why I stuck with this specific event, and then I'm just going to kind of work my way past it. And yeah, you might be wondering like why I wanted to do the Ruthless Aggression, and I really wasn't exactly sure which era I wanted to do. I did a poll on my Instagram page and for like which company and what time era, and it was pretty close between Ruthless Aggression and the Attitude Era. And I really didn't want to do the Attitude Era, at least for right now, because of the things that I've seen and the kind of fan that I am. I don't really think I would like it. Like, I think a lot of the storylines that I've seen and the matches in general are just not good. Like, I think you kind of had to live during that time to really appreciate and like what they were doing. Just a much different feel. And like, I obviously know a lot of the names and the highly regarded matches and storylines around all of these times, but I've never like really dove deep into any of them. Like, for instance, this SummerSlam 2002 show, I haven't seen any of these matches on this show before, so this was kind of like a fun little look back into this time period, and I think it was a good way to start it and really get it kicked off and get me kind of fast tracked into this little stretch of Raw and SmackDown heading forward. So my kind of outlook for how I want or how I see this going is that I'm just going to, for this podcast, I'm going to just cover this SummerSlam show, but then after that, I'm going to watch the weekly product each week and kind of summarize the storylines and events and anything that I liked or anything maybe worth checking out. I'm going to point that out on the next episode, but it won't be like a comprehensive, like in-depth breakdown. And then I will review the Unforgiven 2002 show, which is the pay-per-view after this SummerSlam one. So that's how I kind of see each episode going, is just covering a pay-per-view cycle with overarching like storylines and thoughts on how the product is at this current stage and what works and what didn't, and kind of just like point out what I liked from this time and what wasn't good. And there's some stuff on this show that people are probably not going to agree with me on, that I either didn't like or liked, but yeah, we'll see. So just to kind of set the stage, there were 6 championships in the company as of right now. There was the Undisputed, the World Tag Team, Cruiserweight, Women's, Intercontinental, and Hardcore. And there were only 3 title defenses on this. There was the Intercontinental title defended, there were the tag titles defended, and the Undisputed World title defended. This is just from me. I watched the next 2 shows, the Raw and SmackDown, after this, and they actually merge the hardcore and the Intercontinental. I haven't got further than that, so I know that they do some other things with these titles, because Lesnar, after he wins the title tonight, jumps to SmackDown and they introduce the world title. I do know that, but other than that, I'm not exactly sure what all they do with these titles. But yeah, only 3 title matches on this show, and it was from the Nassau Veterans Coliseum in Uniondale, New York, and they had 15,000 people in this stadium, and it was a very hot crowd, very, very lively. And the commentary was split between Michael Cole and Taz, who were calling the SmackDown side, and then Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, who were calling the Raw side. The first match, which is kind of funny because I watched this show twice over the span of like a week, and yesterday Kenny Omega was talking about it on his podcast or his Twitch or something, reviewing this match, so I thought that was kind of funny. But actually, the first match on this show is Kurt Angle defeating Rey Mysterio in 9 minutes and 25 seconds. I think anybody who wants to appreciate just any type of wrestling can watch this and just appreciate what they were going for, because it's super quick, it's fast-paced, it's well-worked, the story is very good, and it's just it's regarded as one of the best openers in WWE history, and I can definitely see why. It was just an awesome way to start the card, and I mean, obviously one of the best sub 10-minute matches you'll be able to find. Like I said earlier, the crowd was super hot, and both these dudes are some of the best from their generation. I mean, Mysterio, I think it was like Rey Mysterio and CM Punk were kind of like my guys growing up. I also had a weird stretch where I was really into The Miz as a child. I don't know why. And then Angle, I remember as a kid and going back watching in TNA, and I really loved Angle. He was awesome. But to start this one, Kurt Angle was looking super oiled up. I mean, this guy absolutely just poured the bottle on himself. It was crazy to see. The dudes from this era are absolutely yoked. It's so funny. But there's no booyaka booyaka yet for Rey, so he starts with a surprise springboard head scissors from behind Angle, which is kind of funny considering that Mysterio is the face and Angle's the heel, and Mysterio just like takes him out from behind with the head scissors. Quick and explosive offense from Mysterio trying to catch Angle off guard. Angle eventually counters, and these guys trade counters back and forth until Angle reverses the 619 and drags him to the outside. The pace of this one early on is super, super good. It's super quick, and that's one of the issues that I had with a match later on that I know people really love, but I personally didn't. Back into the ring, and Angle begins to suplex and work over Rey as the crowd chants, "You suck." Great heat, looking super oiled up, like I said. This guy's the best. Good middle portion of the match has Angle excellently working over Mysterio's back, with Rey getting some hope spots that Angle eventually snuffs out. And then Angle hits a nasty belly-to-belly and drops the straps, and that's when things pick up. You know, I mean, this is probably like 6 minutes into this match, and it feels like it's gone like 15 with the intensity and the work. Angle then gets thrown out of the ring, and Rey hits an insanely crisp-looking rolling senton over the rope, where the referee is like outside talking to Angle. He's like, "Oh, get back in here!" And then Rey goes over top of the ref and just perfectly lands on top of Angle. It looked great. And there's an awesome-looking springboard from Rey to Kurt for a close 2 count. These guys are cooking. They're cooking. I would definitely go out of your way to watch this one. For like, seriously, if you haven't seen it, definitely go back and watch it. And if you have, watch it again. It's only 9 minutes. 619 followed by a West Coast pop for a 2.9 count, and the crowd is going crazy. Eventually, Rey goes for a top rope Hurricane Rana, but Angle counters into an ankle lock for the win. They kind of like, Rey kind of slipped through the ankle lock, so it wasn't super clean. I think if he held on to him, it would have been just an absolutely perfect finish, but it still worked. I mean, this shit was fire. I mean, I think regardless, I think you've got to go out of your way to watch this. It's super short, incredibly fun, easy to watch, and I would recommend it to anybody. I gave it 4.25 stars. I think Kenny gave it 4.5, which, I mean, is fair too. I just would have liked it to go a little bit longer, but for what they were going for and the time that we're given, I don't think they really could have done any better. I mean, they really couldn't have. This was truly fantastic and a great way to start this event. After that, we go to the back, and Stephanie McMahon, who's the SmackDown GM, and Eric Bischoff, who's the Raw GM, this is kind of like a storyline that goes throughout the night. It really doesn't lead to much. It's kind of just like a buffer between matches. But yeah, they confront each other and lay out that they're going to be watching the show together throughout the night. Weird tension that doesn't hold up with like Bischoff. Like, it doesn't hold up super well. I didn't need this part of the broadcast. Following this up, Ric Flair defeats Chris Jericho in 10 minutes and 25 seconds. Jerry Lawler welcomes us to the Raw portion of SmackDown, and he means SummerSlam, but Jerry Lawler was not very good on this SummerSlam show. He was kind of shitty. Jericho comes out with a crazy goatee and hair combo, sweet black, blue, and gold gear, and is absolutely jacked. I mean, Jericho's looking crazy here. Sweet theme. I mean, this guy's the man at this time. And I didn't know this because I only knew of Fozzy when Jericho came to AEW because it hadn't been mentioned, I feel like, ever in WWE like the past 10 years. Apparently, Jericho's band Fozzy was a thing back in 2002 and was part of a Raw storyline because Flair interrupted a concert they were having and destroyed his set. I legitimately had no idea Fozzy was a thing back then, and it was a part of a Raw storyline. I had no idea. That was interesting looking back on that and seeing that. Flair looks pretty rough here, but he is a 52-year-old man, so that does make sense. Basic back and forth to start. Flair's chops look good and sound good. That's pretty much one of the main positives of this match was Flair's chops, but I mean, that's expected. Jericho rips the security wall off the barricade and jumps off the top rope to attack Flair using the exposed area. I really hadn't seen that part of the barricade used before, so that was kind of a neat spot there. Flair fights back with some chops before being locked in the figure four by Jericho, and then that leads into Flair grabbing the ropes, and he taps out as he grabs the ropes to bait Jericho into letting go of the hold and to gain that momentum back. So that was pretty creative. Ref bump, and Flair hits a low blow on Jericho and transitions into the figure four for the win. This was okay. You'd probably expect better from these two, but Jericho clearly, when I think of Chris Jericho and Ric Flair, I would think of a better match than this. But I'm not sure if this leads to anything more, if this is just a match in the feud that eventually leads to a better match, but I'm not sure because Flair looks pretty rough here, and Jericho had to slow down for him. So I just give this 2.5 stars. It's really nothing. There was this and then one other match that I think are the worst matches on the show, but it wasn't offensively bad. It was only 10 minutes and it wasn't terrible, but coming off of the Angle and Rey match, it was definitely a step down from that, and you would expect more from these two. We get another pan to backstage, and Heyman has a pep talk for Lesnar, and it's very good, as you would expect, just hyping up the main event, which is Brock versus Rock for the Undisputed title. Next, we have Edge defeating Eddie Guerrero in 11 minutes and 44 seconds. Camera pans to a sign that says, "Deport Eddie," so once again, another example of things from the 2000s not holding up very well. Edge comes out to his stroke-inducing lights and his sweet Rob Zombie song. I'm a fan. Michael Cole says Eddie is jealous of Edge because he is a quote-unquote sex symbol. I guess. The main issue with this match, which I did enjoy, I ultimately gave it 3.5 stars, is that Eddie did such a great job working over Edge's shoulder after he tweaked it early in the match. Edge was he had Eddie in the classic spot where he's tied up in the ropes, and Edge goes for a spear, and Eddie moves out of the way, and Edge kind of lands on the outside and tweaks his shoulder. But ultimately, Edge hits the spear with that same shoulder and won, so it didn't really play into the finish. So I thought after Eddie did all of that great work on the shoulder and really sold that story well, I thought it was kind of weird that Edge then just beat him with the spear and with that same shoulder and didn't really face any repercussions for that. Like I said, Eddie works over the injured left shoulder, throws him to the steps, vicious strikes, and various submission holds. This was a non-stop pace attack from Eddie, and it's much like Benoit later in the show attacking the shoulder. It was great work from Eddie, and Edge sells it well, like I said, until the finish. So I missed, again, like I stated earlier on before I started the actual match reviews, I missed most of this era, so I haven't seen a ton of full-length Eddie matches or guys like Benoit or, people like that. But he was really awesome here, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Eddie. Edge eventually pulls off a big crossbody to the outside on Eddie. Both men go to the top rope, and Edge pulls off a front suplex that looks pretty good. Moving on, Frog Splash countered by the knees to the gut, followed by the Execution DDT for a 2 count. Eddie then hits a Northern Light suplex and hits the Frog Splash, but only to the injured left shoulder for a 2 count. And I thought that was a pretty interesting spot and worked for the story. Although I feel like you probably could have wanted... I feel like you probably just want to hit the regular one, right? Like, that works for you. Why do it to the left shoulder unless you're going to lock in a submission, which I don't think Eddie really has that in his bag. Edge then slams Guerrero off the top, ran the ropes, and hits a spear with the left shoulder for the pinfall win, which, like I said, was my main issue with the match. It was still a good, solid bout between the two guys, and I assume that they'll have better down the line because, spoiler alert, on the next SmackDown, they kind of continue this feud, so I got to assume that this still leads to more. But it was still a solid 3.5 match. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun, quick and easy watch for me. Next up, we had America as a whole getting tested within that very squared circle. We had Christian and Lance Storm, a.k.a. the Un-Americans, defeating Goldust and Booker T in 9 minutes and 40 seconds. I gave this one 2.25 stars. I think it was slightly below average tag team match. And, there's nothing like a good old USA versus foreign country battle, baby. These are always... They don't really do them as much anymore. Like, I think the last time that they've done something like this was in AEW, and it was when Cody and Anthony Ogogo were having a feud. And it was as ridiculous then as it is at this time. Maybe because the times were different, this was, like, effective or well done, but it's just, like, always so ridiculous how these foreign country battles are. Like, they're from Canada. Like, they're not from some, like way far off and different country. They're from fucking Canada. Like, it's just so funny. Weirdly enough, I think I mentioned this earlier, Goldust is one of the first guys I remember watching while, like, flipping through the channels as, like, a young child. I think he was on, like, WECW on Sci-Fi against, like, Shelton Benjamin or something. I can't remember exactly, but that's just always stuck with me for some reason. Honestly, though, I was pretty bored by this match, and I thought it would be better considering the 4 workers in this. Like, I think when you think of, like, all 4 of these guys, you think of pretty good, solid workers. The finish really didn't help also because Test came in and nailed a big boot after a ref bump. Like I said, the American ass kissing from the commentary in this match, it wasn't as bad or as funny as the Test and Taker match later on, but it had me legitimately, like, howling and laughing. Like, I had to stop and write some of these quotes down. Like, Jerry Lawler, this is a real quote. He says, "You put 2 guys like Goldust and Booker T together as a team and you work together like we do in this country and you're successful." What does that mean? What? What do you mean 2 guys like Goldust and Booker T as a team? What? What are you talking about? The layout of the match was pretty much just Storm and Christian beating down Goldust for a good part of the match, and then Booker T got a hot tag, and he started cleaning house. That was probably the best part of the match. And eventually Storm takes out the ref, and Test runs out to deliver the big boot finish to Booker T. And then that led to the Un-Americans retaining the tag titles, with Christian pinning Booker. And that kind of surprised me that Goldust didn't take the pin, considering he got beat down. And I would assume, like, when you think of the hierarchy, I would assume that Booker T is higher than Goldust on that. But I guess not at this time. It was whatever. It was a fine middle of the card tag team match. I'll never think about it again. It wasn't anything. It was just a cool off, I guess. I mean, it was what it was. But then there was a I mean, some of this stuff is just absurd. But it was a different time, I guess. There was a contest in Times Square to win the opportunity to make out with Nydia while Jamie Noble watches and cheers on. Now, I think that Jamie Noble and Nydia were together at this time, like, in storyline. So is Jamie Noble one of the first televised cucks? I mean, is this might be revolutionary. I don't know. Noble says, "Don't forget that trick you do with your tongue," after she picks a guy to make out with. And I mean, that's literally the segment. I don't know why it was on the pay-per-view. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I guess Jamie Noble's a cuck. Then we cut to the back. Bischoff says that at least Nydia knows her place in this business. Yikes. So, yeah. Stephanie says RVD will never win the Intercontinental title. So you know what that means. He is definitely winning the Intercontinental title. And that is the next match where Rob Van Dam defeats Chris Benoit in 16 minutes and 30 seconds for the Intercontinental title. And he wins the Intercontinental title. Now, my first note on this match is that the IC title logo is blurred out for some reason. So like maybe it still says WWF. I don't really know why it was blurred out. And at this point, Benoit's on the SmackDown brand. Apparently, him and Eddie like jumped for some reason to the SmackDown brand, and so he took the Intercontinental title to SmackDown, while RVD is on the Raw brand. So that's kind of like the storyline that they're going with, is that Bischoff wants RVD to win, and McMahon wants Benoit to win, so that they can have the title on their brand. I really enjoyed this match overall. The way that Benoit stays so active and vicious on offense is definitely like super unique. And it's something you don't really see in today's like wrestling world. Like a lot of people are like much more slow pace, slow offense when they're like working somebody over as a heel and like play to the crowd. Benoit was just kind of constantly on top of Van Dam, and it was definitely like it was definitely a very interesting style that I haven't really seen a lot of, and I guess that's why people really bought Benoit's offense. But I mean, pointing out the obvious, some people can't watch Benoit matches, and like I totally get that. I totally understand if people want to just erase him from the history books and don't want to watch his matches at all, and it makes people uncomfortable. And yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I think it's up to your personal preference if you can even stomach watching his matches. Personally, for me, I can separate it and try and enjoy the in-ring work without praising the human being that he was. Obviously, you know, you can't be like, oh, well, you know, actually, Benoit wasn't in the wrong. It's like, well, he's a piece of shit, obviously. So I'm kind of just separating the worker from the human and what happens. If you can't do that, I totally understand, and I totally get that. It makes sense to me. But lots of selling from RVD with his arm, and fantastic offense, like I said, from Benoit. He was great in this match, and RVD was good as well. There was a really cool sequence where Benoit sent RVD's shoulder first in the steel ring post to sell that arm and shoulder damage, and then Benoit went on to do 3 Northern Light suplexes in a row while keeping Van Dam's arms hooked, so he was still applying that pressure that he had been working over the arms with, but turning that into a suplex variation. I thought that was really, really cool. Benoit then slapped on a crippler crossface submission. RVD broke free, and he locked in his own crippler crossface. And then Benoit broke free quickly with a drop kick to RVD's left arm. And then RVD came back with a springboard kick to the face for 2, and then followed that up with a step-over spin kick with a rolling thunder splash for the 2 count. And then Van Dam went up to the top, Benoit tripped him up, and RVD was crotched on the top rope. And then this is where the finish happened. This is where Benoit and RVD were both on top. Benoit goes for a belly-to-back suplex, and then RVD counters by landing on top of him, and both guys went down. So, like, Benoit was going for the belly-to-back. RVD kind of, like, flips over, lands on top, and then RVD quickly rolls up and then goes to the top, and it's an awesome-looking 5-star frog splash. I mean, this was super, super high. Well, I mean, RVD probably was, but super high in the air and maybe off the weed, Stephen A. Smith, for the pinfall at 16:30 to become the new Intercontinental Champion. I thought the finish was pretty unique and good. I gave this one 4 stars flat. I thought it was really enjoyable, really solid. It was probably my second favorite. I think it was my second favorite match of the night, right after the Mysterio and Angle match that opened the show. Then we get the what they've been doing all night, where the post match there's just a shot of Eric Bischoff celebrating the win by Roz Van Dam. Yeah, that's his brother, Roz Van Dam. RVD, while Stephanie McMahon was mad about the loss for SmackDown's Benoit. Then moving on, we had, now look, this was not a good match, okay? But I did enjoy how ridiculous and absurd a lot of this match was. And it's the American Badass Undertaker defeating Test in 8 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, I give this 2.75 stars, which I think is a little bit higher than most people because, I mean, first of all, look, you had not the best Undertaker theme, because the best Undertaker theme goes like this. Dead man walking. You've done it now. You've gone and made a big mistake. That one's the best. And it also says badass is always kicking assholes' ass, which is just probably the best line in all of music history. So it's not that theme, but it does say dead man walking. So that's pretty good. But the commentary theme was just absurd in this. I mean, it was it was just insane. Like, again, I have more quotes. So again, Test is in the Un-Americans, so he's coming out with like the reverse United States flag or whatever, and just talking shit about America. And JR says this is about American pride and fighting for your country. And then King calls Taker a free spirit, which is like the most insane thing to say about Undertaker in the world. Like, I think if you said that to him in the locker room, he probably would have took you to wrestler's court. Like, another thing, during the match, Test shoves the ref into the ropes while Undertaker is going for old school. And King says this is typical un-American behavior. No respect for the old school values of the Undertaker. I mean, what are you talking about? What? No respect for the old school values of The Undertaker. What old school values? What are you talking about? Test offense actually looks super good, and he looks like way better than Taker in this match. Sadly, it's pretty much a squash for Taker and a very decisive win in the end. It's pretty much just two big men slugging back and forth until Lance Storm and Christian come down to the ring. Taker takes care of them by hitting corner splashes on both of them and choke slams both of them. And then Test hits a big boot, which put down Booker T earlier in the night, and that got a 2 count. So that was a good near fall. Test then brought a chair into the ring, which allowed Taker to kick the chair and hit a tombstone for the pinfall win at however much I said, 8 minutes and 10 seconds. So the hilariously bad USA propaganda from the commentary team really elevates the match. So it's kind of like a nice short comedy match for me. I know that wasn't the intention, but looking back, it's a bit like, again, this might have been different times. It might have worked for people. I'm not sure if this was working at the time. I still think it was no respect for the old school values of The Undertaker. What does that mean? Post-match, Undertaker grabbed a U.S. flag from a fan, and then he posed in the ring with the U.S. flag in his hand. So, score another one for America, boys. We did it. Next, a video package aired for Triple H for Shawn Michaels in an unsanctioned match. It was focused on like their friendship going back to 1997 and how Michaels is out of action after major back surgery. About a month before SummerSlam, Triple H teased bringing back D-Generation X with Michaels, but then Triple H attacked him. And then there was also like a famous scene where Michaels is beaten up in the parking lot, super bloodied, and there was like an angle where Triple H was like, I'm going to figure this out, figure who did it, Shawn. And then the security footage revealed that it actually was, in fact, Triple H. And then that led to Michaels challenging Triple H to a match at this this SummerSlam. So that's kind of the build-up for this match. And the promo did a very good job of like setting the stage if you weren't aware of how the storyline was, like I wasn't. So this did a good job of setting the table for the match that followed. And this is kind of the match where I think maybe because I wasn't living it and I wasn't super attached to either of these guys, that it really didn't connect with me as much as it did others. I watched this show twice. The first one I just watched straight through, just seeing what I thought of it. The second time I watched more closely, took notes and everything. And I'm just much lower on this than consensus because the community of like Cage Match has it like over 9 out of 10. And then every review I've seen has like 4.5 stars or better. And I just think it's because I didn't watch it in real time, and I'm not as emotionally connected to these guys yet. I literally wasn't even born yet when Shawn had his back injury. And so a big thing in this match is that it's the first time Shawn has been back in 4 years, and nobody really knew how good he was going to be. Nobody knew if this was a one-off. There's just a lot of speculation and a lot of doubt within this match. And so I think it's tough for me to appreciate the moment and the spectacle of him coming back with the emotion of this story. And like I said, I didn't really grow up on Shawn. He was kind of being phased out when I was in my fandom, and I've never been a big Triple H fan. Like, I've always kind of found him a little boring, and he's just always been the top heel when I was growing up, and it's just like, I don't know, he's never been super interesting to me, so I think that's kind of my disconnect with this, because I only gave it 3.75 stars. Like, I thought the Benoit and RVD match was better. I thought the Angle and Rey match was definitely better. However, I still thought it was a good match. Like, I only go to 5 stars. So 3.75 is still like a very solid match for me. Like 2.5 is average. I just personally would never go back to this match again. Really, I've watched it twice. I don't think I need to watch it again. It was just incredibly long. And like I said, I didn't really grow up with these guys. My age range is more like, for me, it's more like a Rey Mysterio and like a CM Punk, and like John Cena was like I wasn't into Cena as a kid, but he was like the main guy around the time. So I didn't really grow up with these guys like a lot of people did, and I can't really appreciate the spectacle and the story of it all. I think both guys did put in really good to even great work here. There was some brutal offense from Triple H, and Michaels sold like his back very well up until the finish, where he basically just like ignored his back being destroyed for 25 minutes, which I think is honestly a big negative point that I didn't really see many people talking about. I mean, he just kind of ignored his back after it was destroyed this entire time. Blood from both guys, lots of weapon offense. This is truly a very, very good brawl with a good story being told. It just didn't connect with me for whatever reason. I'm not, just wasn't there at the time, and I just don't think it holds up super well for me, at least. There was a great table dive from Shawn after some really good ladder attacks from both guys. Michael sets up a ladder against the turnbuckle, and Hebner holds the ladder steady, which people complain about nowadays, but like, if you go back and watch, like they're doing it in this match in 2002. So like, I mean, were the complaints happening then, or are we just kind of like retrospect, like complaining about current day wrestling when old wrestling also did the exact same thing? You know, these, you know, makes you think a little bit, you know. But Michaels jumped off the ladder with an elbow drop to the chest of Hunter. And then Michaels fires up the crowd, cheering loudly for him, and tuned up the band for the Sweet Chin music. And this is when Shawn's really not even selling the back. He's kind of just, maybe you can make the case that it's adrenaline, but you would think that whole story being told, he would sell the back a little more. Triple H caught the foot and wanted a pedigree. Michaels flipped over with a bridging pin and covered for the pinfall win at 27.50 for a massive pop. Crowd was super into this, a lot of emotion. My main issue was just Shawn not really selling the back on the final stretch, but it didn't hurt it entirely for me. Like I said, I still gave it 3.75 stars. I thought it was good. It's just not like an all-time classic for me or something I would recommend. You should watch this match if you haven't seen it to see what you think. I just don't think it holds up well for me. After the match, Triple H hit Michaels in the back with his classic sledgehammer. Shawn on his knees, Triple H hit him again, and then he followed it up with a crotch chop as he left the ring, and Michaels did a stretcher job. So overall, I mean, the angle was good. Match was solid. Just not one of the best things on the show, like I've seen people say. So after that massive heat angle, you know, this big angle, incredible emotion, what do we have next? You know, what do we followed up with? What do we capitalize with the momentum of that? We have Howard Finkel and Trish Stratus in the ring. You know, that's probably not what you expect him to say. And Fink says it's a dog-eat-dog world because she's got the puppies and he's got his wiener. Yeah, that's a real quote from Howard Finkel. Stratus then hugged him. Finkel said that was a pleasant surprise. She said the real surprise is Lillian Garcia, who shows up behind Finkel, and Garcia slaps Finkel and kicks him in the balls. And Stratus's music played as she celebrated with Garcia. So this is setting up the only reason I know this is because I watched the Raw after. This sets up Garcia eventually having a minute-long match with Finkel and taking over the Raw announcer role. But she's got the puppies and he's got his wiener, you know. Put that on a t-shirt. Before the main event, a video package aired for Rock versus Lesnar for the WWE title. It showed a clip of Lesnar winning the King of the Ring, and which meant the WWE title match at SummerSlam. Meanwhile, The Rock won the WWE title in a triple threat match at Vengeance. I think it was between Angle and Undertaker. I can't remember exactly. And then they also showed there were some cool training videos that showed both guys working out. And it built the match pretty well. The video packages on the show have been good. I mean, they really helped you get up to speed if you weren't aware of the storylines that were actively going on in the product at the time. Now it is main event time, and we got Brock Lesnar defeating The Rock in 15 minutes and 58 seconds to win the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. And I gave this one 3.75 stars. I thought if I had to pick one of these matches to watch again, I would legitimately pick this Lesnar and Rock match over the Triple H and Shawn match just because of the length, and I thought they were two very different but very similar quality matches. It was just such an interesting match because it seemed like at the time, I mean, this was definitely the story because Heyman was a heel in this match completely. It seemed like Rock is supposed to be the face and Brock is the heel, but the crowd absolutely want Brock to beat Rock, and I thought that was super interesting, and I didn't realize that was how this match played out. You know, they were chanting Rocky sucks and let's go Brock when Brock is in a submission hold. And then eventually there's some let's go Rocky chants, but it's mainly a pro Lesnar crowd. So I don't know if this was like crowd specific or if it was that Lesnar was just such a monster at the time that people just really wanted him to win the belt. But it made for definitely an interesting crowd and an interesting match layout that I don't think they were expecting, but maybe they were. I don't know. It was definitely unique and something I wasn't expecting. To start the match, Lesnar is kind of just dominating Rock. He knocks Rock out of the ring, and Heyman kicks Rock in the ribs while on the floor. Fans love it for some reason. Lesnar hits a clothesline that sends Rock over the barricade. Then Lesnar did a press slam onto the barricade, followed by another clothesline. And Brock is just looking awesome here. He's a beast, absolute monster. Back in the ring, Rock hits a belly-to-back suplex. Both guys were down for a few minutes, followed by both men doing a kip-up at the same time. Lesnar then grabbed a chair that Heyman brought in, and Heyman distracted the ref, which allowed Lesnar to hit Rock in the ribs with the chair. So, as mentioned before, Rock was clearly supposed to be the babyface here, but the crowd were not really having it. Except for this one moment. Rock was fighting back with some punches, and then the fans were chanting for Rock. Heyman was on the apron. The ref went to him, and Rock punched Lesnar in the balls. So, turnabout's fair play there. Rock exploded out of the corner of this clothesline, punches in the dreaded spit punch, leading to Lesnar bumping over the top to the floor, which is a pretty nice bump. The Rock cleared off the Spanish announce table and hit a clothesline on Lesnar, and then he followed that up with a catapult, and then he eventually took Heyman out of the equation because he gave Heyman a rock bottom through the announce table. So that kind of like evened the playing field there, took Heyman out of the equation after he was been interfering throughout this match. Back in the ring, Rock with a spine buster and throws off the elbow for the people's elbow. As he runs the ropes, Lesnar pops up and crushes Rock with a clothesline, and the fans went crazy for it. And this finishing sequence is pretty good. Lesnar wanted an F5, then Rock slipped out and wanted a rock bottom. Lesnar fought that off, and then he went with like this arm twist right into an F5 that connected to a huge pop. Lesnar then covered Rock 1, 2, 3. And Lesnar is the new WWE Undisputed Champion at 15 minutes and 50 seconds. So I really enjoyed the crowd. I enjoyed it. The crowd were super into it, and it averted expectations in wanting a Lesnar win. The crowd were very crazy in this main event. I wasn't expecting them to be like this. So it was a very fun main event, and it ended up with the right guy winning, really putting Lesnar over strong, and that closed the show on a good note. Overall, I would say it's a great show from WWE. I'm lower on the Michaels and Triple H match than most, but I was higher on matches like Angle, Mysterio, Eddie and Edge, and Benoit and RVD. And I think even a little bit higher on like Rock and Brock. Pretty much every match is at worst decent, and the highs of the pay-per-view are very high. Personally, I would recommend that anybody who wants to go back and watch some good, I would watch Angle, Mysterio, top of the list. I would watch Benoit and RVD. I'd watch Shawn and Triple H just so you can form your own opinion on it. And the Brock vs. Rock for sure. That's another quick match that I think is really an important encapsulation of time here. And if you want to give all of the event a watch, I mean, everything else is easy enough. So I'd give this an 8.5 out of 10. I thought, I don't think it's a legendary 10 out of 10 show that is, everything's perfect, but I think it's incredibly solid, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I watched it twice. So, yeah, next episode, I'll be watching all the weekly television leading up to the pay-per-view, Unforgiven 2002. and I'll go over the storylines, matches to check out, and just the overall quality of the non-pay-per-view portions, because I think for me, it's important to really get engrossed in the product overall. I really want to experience how it was week to week and not just the highs of the pay-per-view. I want to really see how it is as a whole and how it was week to week watching it. I think that's really what I want to get out of this. And then I'll dive into the pay-per-view like I did here, just with more context. But yeah, that's the plan for the series. I'll be tracking my favorite matches, title reigns, storylines. So if you want to experience all this with me, you can make sure to keep tuning in and you can watch it with me. If you have any feedback or disagree with any of my opinions or agree with them, just let me know. Or any feedback, really, just to try and make this more enjoyable. But I really enjoyed watching this, and I'm excited to see where the rest of this takes me. But, if you want to give me feedback, leave it on the YouTube video, or you can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. Sorry, X. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Pro Wrestling Bytes, on X, aka Twitter, at PW Bytes. Listen to the podcast, rate it on any podcast feed, Apple, Google, Spotify, Pocket Bytes, or whatever. Pocket Bytes, Pocket Cast. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. I needed a full list. I don't know. It's on pretty much everything, I think. So, yeah, if you just want to talk wrestling with me or talk about this event, give me some feedback. Let me know why Shawn versus Triple H is the greatest match of all time. ETC. Just let me know. But yeah, I'll respond to it. So, yeah, appreciate it if you've listened to any of this far. And I'll see you all on the next episode of this retro series. Thanks.